What's up, guys? Today we're talking Season 7, Episode 1 of Game of Thrones. Chances are if you come to this channel, you don't come here for TV show reviews, but I really like Game of Thrones. I want to talk about Game of Thrones, and if you're not a fan of the show, or this isn't the kind of content that you want to watch, then it's labeled very clearly, and you guys can feel free to click off. That being said, going forward, I am going to review Game of Thrones week to week, and sometimes like today, I'll do it alone, and sometimes I'll bring in people to talk about the show. Alright, now that we got all that shit out of the way, let's get into the episode. So at the beginning of the episode, we see the army of the dead marching towards the wall. Now, if you've been watching since Season 1, you know that they're moving very, very slowly because they've been marching towards the wall since the end of Season 1. However, we did find out from Jon Stark that there is magic in the wall that actually prevents them from crossing it. So until those spells are broken, they can't actually invade. So the shot of the army of the dead walking is really more of a reminder for the audience that this is a looming threat and eventually they will get there, but it's not likely that they'll get there soon. Speaking of approaching the wall, Brynden Stark actually made it to the wall and he is now with the Night's Watch. Brynden Stark is like the only character aside from possibly Littlefinger that knows Jon Snow's real origin. So him coming back from beyond the wall as the Three-Eyed Raven is potentially a big thing for the series. One of the next big things that we see is Arya Stark after her assassination of Walder Frey. She's actually posing as Walder Frey and she invites all of his sons for a feast. Of course, Arya, being the badass that she is, poisons all of his sons. And then she tells one of his daughters that winter has come and the North remembers. Now, as epic as this event was in the show, I do have to take it outside of the context of the series because this scene actually caused a lot of leftists on Twitter and in social media to dub Arya Stark the symbol of the resistance. The problem with that, of course, is that this is the same left that talks about how Republicans have violent rhetoric, how Trump is going to cause violence by tweeting out memes of CNN. But the symbol of the resistance to Trump is going to be a girl that assassinates political leaders. Seriously, if you're on the left, can you not ruin Arya Stark or Game of Thrones? Everybody that I know loves the series, no matter where they fall on the political spectrum. Everybody that I know loves Arya Stark as a character. Can you not make a political issue out of her? Thanks, I'd appreciate. Now, after that, Arya decided to go south because she wants to assassinate Cersei Lannister. And she bumped into a guy along the way, and it was an awkward cameo that a lot of people pointed out. I personally didn't notice this because I don't know a lot of singers or people in the music industry, but a lot of people pointed out how awkward and clunky it was. And on rewatch, I definitely noticed that this dude's singing was like on a different audio track. You know, because he's a singer, so he has to sing in the show, but he has to sing really good in the show, even though they're soldiers just fighting a war. I'm not sure about this, but I think that the reason why this guy got a cameo in Game of Thrones is because the actress that plays Arya Stark really, really likes him. And I know it bothered a lot of people, but I didn't really notice it. And like, if you're gonna do a cameo, make sure it's a minor character that I don't really notice, and we're good. Anyway, speaking of Cersei and the Lannisters and King's Landing, we actually get a shot of Cersei on the world map, talking about how they have enemies on all sides of them. She mentions as a comeback in her little argument with Jaime Lannister that she's the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and Jaime points out that she's the queen of 3, maybe 4 at best, since all their enemies are rallying against them. And just a quick refresher, the North is under the rule of Jon Snow. Daenerys is approaching from the sea. You have the Tyrells who are angry that Cersei killed all the people in the Tyrell bloodline, and you have the Dornish who are against the Lannisters. So Jaime points out the circumstances that the Lannisters find themselves in. He tells Cersei about the assassination of all the Defrays, and he points out that they need allies in the worst way. And that brings us to Uncle Greyjoy, aka Sabretooth from X-Men Origins Wolverine. He comes to King's Landing seeking marriage from Cersei. You learn about the disdain that everybody has for the Ironborn, which I believe was also touched on when Jaime Lannister met Theon in Season 1. And basically, Uncle Greyjoy promises Cersei a gift that will prove his loyalty. Not sure what that is, but we'll find out. We also get an update on the Hound and the Brothers Without Banners. They actually return to the home where the Hound and Arya stayed for a little while, and then the Hound ended up robbing the guy, and they find him and his kid dead in the home. Honestly, I like the Hound. He's an interesting character and everything, but the Brothers Without Banners are super boring to me, so that's pretty much it. We also get an update on Sam studying to be a maester. We see Ser Jorah stick his arm out, and it's all stony and icky, and basically he's been seeking treatment with the maesters. I'm actually pretty sure that Ser Jorah is gonna get cured. I feel like he's gonna get cured by the Red Woman. I'm not sure if it's confirmed that this is how Stannis' daughter got killed, but Stannis' daughter had the sickness on her face, and Stannis scoured the earth for a cure for his daughter, and he ended up marrying the Red Woman, and I'm pretty sure the two are connected, even if it wasn't explicitly stated. If you remember from the finale of season 6, the Red Woman is heading south, so I think she is going to somehow wind up curing Ser Jorah. Or maybe he'll die miserably and in pain. Who the fuck knows? Anyway, Sam sneaks into the secret part of the library, finds out that Dragonstone, the Targaryen home, is built on a mountain made of dragonglass. Dragonglass cures the White Walkers. Sam was sent to find a way to defeat the White Walkers, so this is obviously super important. And then we have the most interesting stuff for me, and that's the stuff with Jon Snow sitting at the table after he's been declared the King of the North. He makes the decision that everybody will be trained in battle, men or women, boy or girl. Lady Mormont supports him. There's a little dispute, but that's not that big of a deal. What's actually a big deal is Jon gets into his first little power struggle with Sansa. You see, there are northern families that sided with the Boltons, the Castarks, and the Ambers, and Sansa wants them punished for siding with the Boltons.
Give the castles to the families of the men who died fighting for you.
Jon disagrees. He points out that the actual traitors died on the battlefield, and it makes no sense to punish the family for the sins of one member of the family. Sansa's argument is that Jon should punish those who betray him and reward those families that are loyal to him. Jon ends up looking at her like, bitch, I was declared the King of the North. You were not declared the Queen of the North. End of conversation.
But I will not punish a son for his father's sins, and I will not take a family home away from a family it has belonged to for centuries. That is my decision, and my decision is final. And
we get the Castark and the Amber kids swearing an oath of fealty. Now, the reason that this is a big deal is because Littlefinger is aligned with Sansa. And if you remember way back to the beginning of the series, Sansa didn't really care for Jon Snow, and Sansa was always the Stark the most interested in power. She actually talks about how much she learned from Cersei Lannister, and Cersei Lannister does not get undercut. Also, this could be the first step of Jon Snow falling into the same exact trap that Robb Stark fell into. If you remember, the reason why the Castarks betrayed the Starks is because Robb Stark executed the head of the Castarks for killing Lannister children. So we know that the perception that you don't reward your allies and that you cater to your enemies has really negatively impacted the Starks in the past, and it looks like Sansa's aware of that, but Jon is just acting like Ned Stark. He's noble. Which, by the way, now that I think of it, it's not only what got Ned Stark killed and Robb Stark, it's also what got Jon Snow killed when he was at Castle Black. So I'm not really sure how long the King of the North is gonna be a thing. That being said, there was an important line in the episode where Jon Snow points out that dragonglass is more valuable than gold to the North right now. Which brings us to Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys actually lands at Dragonstone, her ancestral homeland, and I believe this is the first time she's been there since she was a child, if not ever. The scene is super quiet in terms of dialogue, just a building score to underscore how epic this moment is, because we've been waiting since the very beginning for the Targaryen invasion to happen, or at least since the dragons were born. So it's a really epic moment. There's not a lot of dialogue until Daenerys goes into the war room, and then she's ready to start making her strategy.
Shall we begin?
All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. It set up a lot of things that will pay off later, which is what a first episode of a season is about to do. But it also opened and closed with really epic moments. Arya Stark assassinating the Freys and Daenerys landing at Dragonstone. Now, as for the preview of next week's episode, I don't really want to get into previews too much, but there was one moment that I do want to point out, and that's the little misdirect that was thrown our way. We get a moment where a member of the North is screaming how you can never trust a Targaryen, and then it's a quick cut to Jon, because as we know now, Jon is half Targaryen, and it's supposed to do one of two things. Number one, if you're dumb, you're supposed to think that in the next episode, Jon finds out his true origins. Number two is for the people that are actually paying attention. Basically, in the next episode, Jon Snow will probably find out two things. Number one, that Daenerys has landed at Dragonstone, and number two, that Dragonstone is basically a mountain of dragonglass. So when that guy's yelling about never being able to trust the Targaryen, he's probably yelling that at Jon in reference to Daenerys, because Jon would most likely cut a deal for the dragonglass because it's that epic. Of course, if you know the history of Game of Thrones, you'll know that Ned Stark's father and Ned Stark's older brother were assassinated by the Mad King. Most of the world believes that Rhaegar Targaryen kidnapped Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister, raped her, and killed her. So the hatred for the Targaryens in the North is definitely definitely a powerful thing. That being said, it was stated way back when Robb Stark was declared the King of the North that the Northerners bow to the dragons, that they don't bow to Southern kings. So the fact that Daenerys has dragons might change some opinions in the North, but who knows. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys today. It was a good episode, very setup heavy. It was book-ended with 2 epic moments, and I feel like Jon Snow is starting to sow the seeds of his own destruction. Again. If you like this video, then please show me by leaving a like. You can join the conversation by leaving a comment below. Subscribe for more content. Support me on PayPal. This has been me talking about Game of Thrones. Until next time.